What's up, guys? It's Gunny G, ba-bam, or Big Dad, ba-bam. And we have a review of The Last Jedi coming at you right now. So strap in. It's kind of a long review, so strap in. Let's do this. See what we think about this movie. Hang on. So last night we finally sat down and watched Star Wars: The Last Jedi as a family. I'd been a little conflicted about watching it. I did post a video that talked about the 5 reasons why I had not yet seen it, but we finally sat down and we watched it last night. The first thing that I want to say is that I had read the synopsis in advance going in. I I did admit that in my 5 reasons video as well. So I knew the major plot points and ultimately what was going to happen. So that that's not a big deal. The movie was still so just because I knew what was going to happen, it didn't really take away from the from my experience at all. So to be able to review this movie, I'm gonna have to break it down in a couple of parts because as a filmmaker and an artist, it's usually really super. You have 3 different things on your mind. So the first part is from the technical and design standpoint. This is an amazing film. They were really super careful, I think, in their design, in their use of color. Even right down to the cinematography on the film. It's definitely amazing. On the island on Octo, they it's more of a muted, washed out, almost bleached color. In the First Order ships, there's lots of blacks, lots of reds, lots of allusion to the to not only the 6 films that preceded it, but also even though they killed the expanded universe, there's a lot of references, I think, to a lot of the expanded universe, by the filmmakers. Even though Disney killed it officially and call it the Legends now, there still is a lot of reference to it, back and forth. So I really think that the color and the design makes it where they really set the mood in each of the sections of the film. One of the things that I thought was amazing is that there's a section in the film where they are in an old rebel base on the planet Crate, and the technology that they have there is a mixture of the new stuff from these films and then a lot of the old style stuff that you would have seen back in the 80s, late 70s, early 80s when they made the original films. So that was really cool. I'm glad that they threw that in. It's absolutely amazing. Uh, like I said, the camera work is amazing on this movie. Camera work, the sound is amazing. They used a lot of the same wipes and transitions that they did in the original films, and that's super important to me. Um, and then the second part of it is the plot itself. Now I was a little bit reticent whether or not I wanted to give any spoilers, but ultimately to give my opinion of the film there have to be some spoilers thrown in. Spoiler alert, if you don't want to hear any spoilers, if you haven't seen the movie yet, um, you might want to stop it, and just suffice it to say that I think it's a great movie. Um, so anyway, what we're gonna do is we'll just talk about some of the great scenes. I'm not gonna give you the whole synopsis. Those are all over the internet. So the movie opens with Poe, with Poe in an X-wing. He first he's talking to General Leia, and flying straight towards the First Order, whatever dreadnought. Um, so he hails the dreadnought, and there's this. He asks to speak to Hux, and so there's this hilarious exchange between Poe and Hux. It's really reminiscent of the old films and the kind of almost slapstick humor they had in certain sections. He asks to speak to him, and then Hux goes off on this tangent, and then he's like, "Oh, hello, still holding for Hux." He's like, "Can you hear me? Can you hear me?" Uh, it's hilarious. And finally, Hux realizes that he's stalling, and so there's this really great action scene, and a lot of people get killed, but ultimately it works out the right way. Uh, so then it goes to Octu, where Rey hands aging Master Jedi Luke Skywalker his lightsaber, which she had recovered in the previous movie from Maz. He takes it, almost lovingly into his hands and runs his thumb over it, and then promptly throws it over his shoulder. The scene is very funny and it's really well done, and Daisy Ridley has this almost like shocked look on her. I mean, it is a shocked look. It's not an almost shocked look. It's just this shocked look. And she stands there for a second, and then she follows Luke. And Luke basically like avoids her like this whole thing. At one point, she has to go get the lightsaber. It landed in a nest, and that's at the point where we meet the Porgs. I only mentioned them because a lot of people hated on the Porgs. I think they're cute. They're kind of pointless, other than the fact that I read somewhere online that there were so many puffins on the Irish island that they used to film the Octu scenes that they had to cover them somehow. They just couldn't be edited out. There was just so many of them, so they put in the Porgs as a kind of cover for that. So it's pretty, but they are pretty funny, and my kids really really love them. Um, So then we go back on board the dreadnought. There's a really funny scene. There, Kylo Ren comes in, and Snoke starts to rake him over the coals, and he's speaking to Snoke through the mask, and Snoke tells him, "Now remove that ridiculous thing." So he takes it off, and that's the last time you'll have it on. He'll have it on. Because after Snoke berates him and says to him, dismisses him, saying, "You are no Lord Vader," Kylo gets into the elevator, and he smashes his helmet into a billion bits. Um, um, so then we go back to Octu, and Luke is talking to Rey and Chewie. Now there was a funny scene that I missed earlier, where Luke is avoiding Rey, and then the door flies off of his like little hut thing, and Chewie comes in. Chewie had knocked the door off. So anyway, so now we're back on Octu, and after the whole Ben smashing his helmet thing, and there's a question there that Luke asks Rey and Chewie, and it's super important. I think it's important in the scheme of the movie. It's also important to those of us who are fans, longtime fans of the film, and we had a certain thing in mind when Luke Skywalker was supposed to show up. He asks her what did she think was going to happen, that he was just going to basically, I'm paraphrasing, but take on the whole first order with a laser sword. And that's a super important question. What did we think was going to happen? That Luke would come, aging Jedi Master Luke would come and do force flips and all of that stuff. So anyway, so you'll see that. So she follows him around. She starts following him around the island as he goes about his daily business. Getting milk out of these funny looking, I guess, sea cows, and then jumping from one cliff to another and using this giant spear to kill a giant freaking fish. And at one point, there's this tree, and it starts to call to her. The Force starts to call to her, and she's compelled to wander into the tree. And in there, she discovers that there are books, these ancient Jedi religious texts. Luke takes one because he asks her, how she got there, or why her. Um, he runs his fingers longingly across the symbol, and if you don't know what it is, when you watch the movie, it is the symbol of the Jedi. It's right up here, boom, on my screen, on my overlay. Um, so he asks her, "Who are you? Why are you here?" And they said, "Well, Leia sent me." So why did they send you? And she starts to tell him about the Force, and he tells her that she needs a teacher, but he can't be him because it's time for the Jedi to end. And so we go back. So that's a really great scene. The camera is there's this dark light in the window, and there's dark around, and I think that the director and the cinematographer really laid that out really well. So then there's a really funny part. Leia demotes Poe and tells him that he can't just jump in an X-wing and blow stuff up. Um, so suddenly, so they come out. The Resistance ships come out of hyperspace, and immediately the First Order ships jump out of hyperspace after them. They had figured out how to track them through hyperspace. Poe immediately, so they immediately start barraging them, and Poe asks Leia's permission to jump in an X-wing and blow stuff up. I mean, he says it that exact way. She says, "Yes, please do." Uh, and so Kylo Ren is flying, and they're blowing stuff up. And there's a really great scene where he goes to blow his mom up. Because Leia is his mother. Um, Sorry, that's a spoiler. Anyway, if you didn't see the first movie. But he hesitates, which is interesting. But other TIE fighters launched the bombs, and so she was blown out into space. There's all this stuff. But they decide to run from, and so they just start to run. And get beyond the cannons because they figure out that if they tracking them through hyperspace, then as soon as they come out of hyperspace, they will blow them up anyway. And so she's out in space, she's unconscious, but then suddenly she comes to herself and she uses the Force to bring herself into the ship, and then she collapses. And to my knowledge, in the films, now in the comic books and in some of the extended universe stories, she does use the Force a couple of times. But in the films, the only thing that she had ever used the Force to do was for pre-knowledge, or for to feel when things had happened, or when like in the Force Awakens, when she felt that Han had died. And so this is the first time in the films, at least, like I said, that we get to see Leia actually use the Force. Up until then, she'd always been Force sensitive, but not yet a Force user in the films. So now we go back to Ahch-To. Luke goes in the Millennium Falcon, and he basically takes some golden, which would be the Star Wars equivalent of fuzzy dice, I think, out of this rack, and then suddenly R2 wakes up, and he's talking to Luke, and Luke tells him that he wishes he could make him understand, but he's never going back. There's nothing he can do to change his mind. And then suddenly R2 plays the video of Princess Leia that started it all. And he's like, "Oh, that's a low." But then, a funny scene. R2 beeps and boops at him, and he's like, "Hey, Sacred Island, watch the language." And so then after that, Luke goes outside and tells Rey that he'll teach her 3 lessons, and why that the Jedi, and show her why the Jedi need to end. Back on board the ship, Finn is trying to escape. He's going to try to go find Rey and keep her from going back to the beacon that Leia had given Rey. We meet a new character named Rose, and she shocks the junk out of Finn. But then after he explains to her what's going on and how they can track the ship through hyperspace, they come up with a plan to save the ship. They do tell Poe about it, but they don't tell this new Vice Admiral who has taken over in Leia's absence, and she has just decided to run. She won't tell Poe any of the plans, so Poe is butthurt, and he sends Rose and Finn away to Cantor Blight to find a slicer after Maz tells them that's what they need. So then back on Ahch-To, Rey has a vision that she's talking to Kylo Ren. She shoots him, and this leaves a hole in the wall of her hut. It continues, Kylo speaking to Rey. Luke interrupts him, and he seems to have no idea. The natives that caretake the site, they're upset at Rey. It's really funny. There's a couple of really funny scenes with them later on in the film. As she's doing lightsaber stuff, she cuts a rock and it smashes their cart, and so it's pretty funny. So Luke takes Rey behind a mountain to start teach her about the Force. It's a really hilarious scene where he tells Rey to close her eyes and reach out, and we all know he means with her emotions or with her feelings. She sticks her hand out, and he's got this long leaf in his hand. He starts to tickle her fingers. Do you feel it? Do you feel it? And she says yes, and then he smacks her. And at that point, she realizes that not with her hand, but with her emotions. And so she has this vision where she sees the island and the waves and the porg, and between it all is the Force, a lightness and darkness. But then she sees a dark place, a dark side place under the island, and the power of the dark side place draws her in strongly. And Luke becomes concerned because he says she didn't even try to resist. Uh, he says that he had felt that much power only once before, and it hadn't frightened him then, but it does now. And he's talking about Ben Solo, who becomes Kylo Ren. It's at that point that she discovers that he has closed himself off from the Force. That's why Ben can't feel him or see him in their shared Force, whatever it is. Okay, so we go back and forth, and Rey and Kylo talking to each other via the Force. Some of it's important, but most of it's not. The most important parts of that part is of them telling what happened the night that Ben becomes Kylo Ren and betrays Luke. I'm not going to talk about it in this because the only thing I'm going to say is that there were a lot of users online who didn't like how that Luke kind of almost slipped to the dark side himself in that section. I mean, hopefully we see a little more about it in the next film, but we may not. But anyway, so Kylo kills the Jedi Padawans and burns down the Academy. In this whole section, though, on Octu, there's a couple of things that I wanted to bring out. The first part is that there's a disc in the cave that they keep wandering in and out of. There's a disc on the floor. It's a mosaic, a mural on the floor of some kind of stones, and the camera keeps vaguely circling around it. They keep coming back to it. Now there was we're not here to talk about theories, but there's something important about that. At least the director makes it seem like there is. Now, hopefully, they won't forget that plot device in the next film, and they'll come back to it. I hope they do. I really do. We never get a clear picture of it, but clearly it's important. I just hope they remember that it's important. So we go back and there's a ton of action on Canto Blight. There's a lot. It's really fun. We won't go over it, but there are a couple important parts. Finn and Rose get arrested while they're on Canto Blight trying to find the Slicer to help them. A wacky, stuttering Slicer helps them. And there's a part there where they find themselves in a stable, and there's a bunch of slave children in there, and they're gonna ring the alarm, but Rose shows them a special ring, and it has the rebel symbol hidden underneath the main thing, and that convinces them to not turn the thing alert the authorities on them. So ultimately, the Slicer helps him escape, but he talks to them, and so he tells Finn something important, and it is, the Canto Blight, we're all rich people, it was a casino, and Rose tells Finn that they're arms dealers, that they made all their money off of war, and they don't care the outcome. And so the Slicer shows Finn that the ship that they've stolen belongs to an arms dealer who sold to both sides. Okay, so then there's some other things that happen. Rey goes to confront Kylo. He takes her to Snoke. Snoke reveals then that he had tied Rey and Kylo's minds together. That's not super important. I mean, it might be later, but then he uses the Force to pry the secret of where Luke is from her mind, almost effortlessly. That's the part that I think is super important here. He's a dark side user, not a Sith. Clearly not a Sith. He's a dark side user that is super powerful. He effortlessly takes the lightsaber out of Rey's hand using the Force and spins it around and smacks her in the head with it, almost knocking her out. He effortlessly brings her to him and rips information from her mind. and previously in the six movies before that, the only user who had that much power um, was Anakin. Anakin could do things with the Force that other Force users could not do. And so we'll talk about that later. But this Snoke is super powerful. Um, so the part that we can't overlook at this point is that the Vice Admiral had made a plan to evacuate everyone from the Resistance to the planet Crate. Poe tried to mutiny because he felt like that was wrong. But then at the last moment, Leia comes in and she shoots at Poe with a blaster, knocking him out. There's a really funny scene on Octu where Luke is going to burn the tree with the books in it, and Yoda appears to him as a Force ghost. So Luke runs over like he's going to burn the tree, then he hesitates, and then Yoda, laughing crazily like Yoda would do, uses the Force to cause lightning to burn the tree. Um, it's at this point Yoda tells Luke that failure is the way to wisdom, and that Luke is feeling what all great masters do. Um, Finn and Rose sneak upon the dreadnought. They almost get where they're go. They almost get done what they're supposed to be doing, but then they get captured at the last minute because this little black BB model droid uh, discovers them. The Slicer sells them out. It also sells out the Resistance, and so the Dreadnought starts to shoot the escaping vessels, blowing them up. Um, so back in with Snoke and Rey and Kylo, Snoke is going off monologuing like villains do, that Kylo is going to kill her, but Kylo kills Snoke instead. And there's this intense fight scene where Kylo and Rey kill Snoke's guards, and then they fight over the lightsaber. It bursts apart. At the same time it bursts apart, Vice Admiral sacrifices herself and uses the Resistance ship to jump to light speed. This causes the light speed, whatever, to rip through the dreadnought and tear it apart. Um, this knocks out Kylo, and so after that, um, they start to. He wakes up. Hux wakes him up. We realize Snoke's dead. Kylo blames Rey, and they go down to the face of the planet to finish what they started because uh, Kylo uses a Force persuade on Hux to declare himself the Supreme Commander. The best part of this is so there's some really great scenes. They use the Resistance uses some old school speeders to fight, and there's some really tense action. I don't want to ruin it for you, but there's some really tense action with some old crappy equipment, and it's really funny. And so, but it's too late. The big AT-AT like walkers are there, and they use this small Death Star technology to blow a hole in the main door, and then Luke walks out. And before he does, he stops to give Leia the golden dice that we mentioned earlier. There's a funny thing, almost ironic, and I feel like Carrie Fisher probably wrote it herself. He says Leia, and she goes, I know what you're gonna say. I changed my hair. Anyway, so Luke goes out. Kylo fires has all of the walkers fire at him until Hux finally screams, "Enough! Don't you think you got him?" But oops, they didn't. There he stands, just fine. So Kylo goes down, and so in there, he says something super important to Luke. He says, "When I have killed you, I will have killed the Last Jedi." Hence the name. Luke is supposed to be the Last Jedi. But then Luke tells him that if you strike me down in anger, I will be with you always. So they fight, and he strikes him down, but he was revealed to be basically like a Force ghost. He's an apparition, and Luke himself is still on Octu in a deep Force trance. So in the time that they had been in this lightsaber battle, the Resistance escapes. Rey uses the Force to move the boulders aside, and they get on the Millennium Falcon and they escape. at that point, Luke is revealed, like I said, to be back still on Octu in a forced trance. He comes out of the trance, falls over, and then he, staring into the sunset, he finds peace and he fades into the Force, much like Obi-Wan did in the first film. The ending of the film, I think, is the most important part, and I want to mention it. It goes after they talk, after Leia and Rey talk, and there's all the things on the Millennium Falcon. It goes back to Canto Blight, and the slave children from the stables from before. They're telling the story of the attack, and suddenly their master bursts in, and they're sent scurrying out. And one child, he goes out the door. He puts his hand out, and the broom moves into his hand. So obviously he is a force sensitive child, and when the camera comes in tight on his hand around the broom, Rose's rebel ring is on his finger, and that, to me, that signifies that they've gone from being the resistance, now they are the rebellion again. So that's the plot. Now we're going to talk about my reaction to all of these things. The film to me was amazing for a lot of reasons. To me, it really fits well within the framework of the Star Wars universe, both the accepted canon and the expanded universe, which now, of course, as I said before, we call the Legends. Some other of the hardcore Star Wars fans really didn't like the way Luke turned out, but I really, really do. Some of the stories in the Legends, in some of the other games and books and comic books, really lend themselves well to this burned out master idea. I play the Star Wars, The Old Republic, and in there you meet a lot of old, burned out masters. In the Force Unleashed, there's a burned out master, Ram Kota. Um, and when Luke sacrifices himself so the Resistance members can escape, that's classic Jedi stuff. I know Mark Hamill had his doubts about Luke's path, and he was very vocal about it. But he did say later that he wished he'd kept his mouth shut, and that if he had trusted the vision of the director a little more, he would have kept his mouth shut. There are parts of the film that I don't think make any sense. The vision that Rey has in the dark side place is really, really pointless. Unless it has a deeper meaning and they can explore it and show it, it's really, really pointless. I hope that they show the meaning. I don't, honestly, I don't feel like they will. I think that was just a wasted few minutes. The big disc in the center of the room on Act 2 is a mystery. It doesn't make any sense. I hope it's obviously important, but they kept going back to it, so I hope that they don't overlook that plot device. I fear they will, and I'll tell you why in a moment. The build up for Snoke being the big bad in this film, and then killing him in the second act in the final act of this film, doesn't seem to make sense to me. They made his appearance so distinctive, and to my way of thinking, that's important. I do know that they didn't decide on his appearance until almost the end of production on The Force Awakens, but it's so distinctive, and they labored over it so much. It feels to me like it should be something. And the fact that they killed him off almost so simply and easily, it doesn't seem to make any sense to me. There's a section where Kylo reveals to Rey that her parents were nobodies, drunks, Jakku drunks, that they're in a pauper's grave on Jakku. I think that's stupid. That's one of the only parts of the film that I don't like. I think there was all this build up, all of the, and then they throw that plot device in the trash. I understand the whole orphan syndrome thing, and that's a part of it, but the visions and the other junk seem to imply that there was something else going on, and just to throw that plot device away so recklessly, I think is stupid. I hope that it was a sleight of hand trick, and they're going to come back to it. I hope. That's one of my hopes. So those are the pointless parts. Of course, there are other things, but those are the main ones that there are a couple of questions that I had after seeing the film. I'm going to wait to see the next one before I see, to see if they answer those. But there's one that I wanted to bring out. It's super important to me, and I didn't notice. I don't know if anybody else noticed it. I haven't seen anything about it. And that is Luke's lightsaber that Rey recovers and takes with her to Octu. Um, if you've seen the original films, um, the lightsaber that she finds is has a blue blade. The one that he used in Return of the Jedi had a green blade. It also was closer related to the blade to the hilt that Obi-Wan Kenobi carried. The 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 saber that they have, the blue saber that he had was the saber that he lost when his hand was cut off um, by Darth Vader in Empire Strikes Back. So I'm curious if they will address that, or if that was just an oversight on the part um, of the directors. First J.J. Abrams and then the director for the second film. Um, I hope it wasn't. I hope it was something deeper and greater. But I wonder where Maz got it. Um, we'll see. We'll see if they even address it. I really don't think they will. I think it was an oversight on the part of the directors. I am concerned with what they will do with Leia now that Carrie Fisher is dead. I do hope they treat Leia with the respect she deserves. I'm sure they will. The entire cast, including Mark Hamill and the director, and everyone did express their condolences when she died, and so I'm sure they will treat Leia with respect. They'd better. Um, they gave Han the death that he wanted. They gave Luke the death that he deserved, even if it wasn't the one that he wanted. So overall, I would say that this was a great film. I really would suggest, if you're a Star Wars fan, seeing it with an open mind. There's a great deal of humor in it, and there's some really great, really awesome action scenes. It does stand alone well. I think you could watch the film and never watch any of the others and not lose anything. It does seem to have a lot of the really great humor and chemistry that the original trilogy had, especially in the first Star Wars and then in Empire Strikes Back. Um, so I am going to give it 4 out of 5 stars. I would give it a 5 star if it wasn't for the dark side thing under the island and the killing Snoke off so fast. I feel like that was pointless, and building him up to be such an amazing big bad and so powerful, and then killing him off like that really, really was pointless. So anyway, so that's my review of the I'm sorry, of the Last Jedi. So anyway, that was my review of The Last Jedi. We appreciate you taking the last 30 minutes and listening to me ramble on about this movie. I really did like it. I really did. I really think that it's a welcome addition to the franchise. I hope that they don't ruin it in the next one. I really would like to see J.J. Abrams come back. This director was cool, and his vision was cool. Um, but the film did feel differently than The Force Awakens, and so maybe it would be to me it would be great if JJ came back and finished his vision for this trilogy. I'm really looking forward to seeing Solo. I will probably end up seeing that in the theater. I did try to talk my wife into going, but my sons are really, really wanting to go, so I'll probably take them to the theater when it opens and see it. So anyway, so thanks for listening. We appreciate it. Tonight we are going to play some Star Wars. I know Friday I was supposed to have a video dropped, but we had some personal things going on. So anyway, so look for some Twitch later. We appreciate you so much. If you haven't already, if you like this video, hit that like button. If you want to see more Star Wars stuff, more game stuff, then go ahead and hit the subscription button. Make sure you hit the little bell to let you know that we've put a new video up. Videos usually drop every Friday, or unless we do something like this, and then those are just random. We do stream on Twitch 5 nights a week, and then we always put those videos over about 24 hours. Check us out over on Twitch. Links are down in the description. Our Twitter, our Facebook, our Discord, and Instagram, even though we haven't really done anything with Instagram in a while, but we're going to get back to that soon. So anyway, check them out down in the description. We do appreciate you. We do love you very much, and thank you so much for watching. Hey, like I say, every video that I put out, be safe out there. It's a jungle. We are not treating each other very well anymore, but let's strive to be a little more Jedi-like. And as always, I love you, and may the Force be with you.